Welcome back, everybody, to the Dragon's Ire. My name is Wade, and this is my show, Only Lore in the 41st Millennium. The Grimdark of the 41st Millennium. There is only lore. So, I've been making this series about the Tyranid assault on a planet, and there are two other videos that go over Phase 1 and Phase 2. We're in Phase 3 right now, so the first phase is infestation infiltration. The second phase is invasion, and today we're going to cover consumption. So this is the last one. Go ahead and check out the other two. So after all of the defenders of a world are dead, a new phase begins. So the spores that have been bombarding the planet all along, some of them carry microorganisms that infect the plants and animals, turning them into Tyranid versions. You got an image of that right there. And then some of those act as drop pods, so those are myetic spores or tyrannocytes. And then some of them act as bombs. So they hit the ground, they explode in digestive acid, and everything gets burned and killed, destroys buildings. Okay, so those acid bombs, those once again, they start to overlap, and then they pool in places that the hive mind has already figured out what's a good spot for this because the lictors have told them already. And then once those pools start to become really big, the feeder organisms that have been hiding in the ground or have been pupating inside of dead defenders or have been delivered to the surface already, ripper swarms primarily, but there are also digestive organisms, that's the green foggy stuff you see there, that has been in the planet since the infiltration phase. They really kick into overdrive. So like the fog softens materials and makes dead bodies juicier and softer so they can be eaten. The rippers run in there and they begin to eat everything. So the important part to understand here is that they eat everything. So they eat plants that are not infected, animals that are not infected, dead defenders, and the most important part is dead Tyranids. So there's not a lot of waste. Everything here becomes what's known as biomass. And biomass is the only thing that the Tyranids care about. They want more biomass. So since the infestation phase, these things have started to grow out of the ground called capillary towers. And they grow really far up into the atmosphere. So then they begin to hook up to these pools. So they grow like veins in the ground that snake their way out into the pools and things like that. And then the ripper swarms start to eat everything. They get really gorged and really fat, and then they crawl back to the digestion pools, and they jump in where they're digested with the biomass in their stomach. There are other organisms like Horospexes, for example, which are really good in game right now in 10th edition. Horospexes eat until they can't eat anymore, then they go to the pool and throw up. And they go back and eat and throw up. And all harvester organisms, this is their key part of the whole process. So there are even stories of things like Carnifexes dragging dead bodies to the pools and kicking them in the pools and stuff like that. So then the capillary towers begin to suck up the biomass, which this is where ships come from space that are still alive from the Hive Fleet, and they dock with the capillary towers and they eat the biomass. This is like underway replenishment that the Navy does or that the Air Force might do. It's the same thing. So they're sucking up the biomass. It's at this point in the whole process that the hive mind makes a very interesting choice about what they do with the gene stealer cults. So one of three things happens, or I guess maybe a combination. The hive mind severs the link with the gene stealer cults. It was controlling them at one point, and now all of a sudden they're freed. And they're like, oh crap, we're surrounded. The Tyranids eat them, chuck them in the pool. Or sometimes it never severs the link, and they're like, hey cults, you guys were really cool. How about you guys go for a swim? And then they just walk willingly right into the pools, get digested, turn into biomass, sucked up, downloaded, fly away. Or the third option is, sometimes it says, hey guys, you were really cool. How about you jump on a bunch of ships and you fly away, and you become refugees to other planets, and you start the cults all over again, which goes back to step one, infiltration, infestation. So the cycle just starts all over again. So everything is consumed during this phase. Every speck, every scrap, every dead gaunt, every dead guardsman, everybody goes into the pools. Once the surface work is done and there's nothing left to eat on the surface of the planet, that's when the surviving Tyranid warrior organisms throw themselves into the pool. So this is where Gaunt to Hive Tyrant to Surviving Ripper Swarm, everything throws itself in the pool. There is no waste in the efficiency of the Tyranid hive mind in the hive fleet. um, that's the real way that you hurt the Tyranids, is that you create waste in the biomass, because then that hurts their ability to move forward. So after everything that was dead has been eaten, after everything has been killed and eaten and thrown in, and then everything that was alive and survived from the Tyranid invasion force is digested. After all that, then there are some special ships that do actually have the ability to come into the atmosphere. They come down and they start sucking up the water. They drink the water, they fly back up, they deposit it, then they come back down, rinse, wash, repeat. They also suck up what's left of the atmosphere. And there are genetically engineered ships that do this. They provide this service for the hive fleet. So there have been examples that have been documented of Tyranid worlds that, after the consumption of the planet has been done, that they find it looks like the Tyranids were eating metals, and it looks like the Tyranids were eating dirt. And the current leading theory is that they, by eating the metals and ceramite and things like that, is they're digesting them, and then they're analyzing those things, adding the biological distinctiveness to the hive mind index, but also B, trying to figure out, let's create something that can then destroy ceramite. Let's create something that can go through plastisteel. And plastisteel is not a 40k thing, but whatever. But you get the idea. They're taking what was hard for them to fight against during the invasion, and then they're analyzing it and trying to defeat it. They're evolving, and that's what Tyranids really are, is their evolution on spacecraft decided to eat everything and consume everything. Some people call Tyranids the galaxy reset button. And part of that reason why they call them that is it was actually discovered by an inquisitor that underground on a world that had been devoured by Tyranids, there were pockets of water that were left behind, and there were microorganisms left behind. So it's not that a planet is completely devoid of life, it's that everything on the surface has been scraped off. So it's kind of like these worlds could possibly become living worlds once again. So kind of like how you plant crops in different places and then move those crops around, because you'll come back around eventually. Imperial scientists do think that a planet that has been completely stripped of all of its biological matter could be re-terraformed in about 350 years, is the current theory, give or take a century. But that's all theoretical work. Right now, the current Imperial belief is that any Tyranid world needs to be quarantined and never visited or ventured upon or resettled. This whole process creates a lot of effort and energy and the expensive biomass on the part of the hive fleet. So once they've sucked everything up and drained everything dry, they're hungry again. But don't worry, because part of the genius of the hive mind is, during these 3 stages, they've still been sending out spores. They've still been sending out gene stealers. They've still been sending out lictors. So they're already hunting for new planets. And there are cults on other planets that are getting strong enough to create that psychic signal to draw the hive that way. The hive is constantly thinking, working. It's putting out 80 different fires, probably even hundreds of thousands of different fires. It's doing all of this simultaneously while it's directing the hive on the ground and strategizing. That's why it's such a nebulous, big, unfathomable thing. Anyways, I really enjoyed sharing this with you guys. Make sure you go check out the other 2 videos. Invasion is number 2, and Infestation Infiltration is number 1, to get the whole story. I really enjoyed researching this and sharing this with you guys. It's fun for me. I'm a Tyranid player. But anyways, we here at the Dragon's Lair understand that you could spend your time anywhere on the internet. So we want to say thank you for spending your time here with us at the Dragon's Lair.